Welcome to the channel, guys. We are back again, and today I'm going to be talking about the top 10 fragrances that I tried this year, 2021. So stay tuned for that. If you like top 10 list fragrance reviews, cologne comparisons, hit that subscribe button for more great content. So 2021, despite being not a great year in other ways, there were a lot of great fragrances that I got the opportunity to try out, to check out, and I am, of course, happy for that. So I made a list of 10 fragrances that I did try that I really enjoyed, and I got two honorable mentions. So the first one is Interlude 53. Now, this is actually a really good fragrance. It smells really nice. It's a much more refined, likable, easy to wear version of Interlude. It has this really beautiful kind of creamy vibe that goes along with that smokiness, and of course it does really maintain the Interlude DNA while still being a little bit more polished and more, mass appealing. Still not sure it's mass appealing, but it's definitely much easier to pull off. Now, the big reason there's an honorable mention is because the price value is kind of ridiculous, and somebody mentioned this, I think it was on my channel or maybe it was on Facebook, I don't actually recall, but I did give a good review to this fragrance because it's really good, but the thing is, it's like $500, and that is just way too much for this fragrance. It's way too much for really any fragrance, like retail fragrances that go that high. Personally, I won't buy them. I would get them on, on a discount if I can find them, but $500 is just like, it would have to be life-changing, in my opinion, for me to drop that kind of money on a fragrance. That's just me, that's just my opinion. Next one is Ramune by Gents. Really enjoyed this one. Really remind me of being in Japan. Really reminds me of Ramune, which is this really nice, fizzy, bubbly soda pop. And it's just really nice. Very fun, nice, fun, playful fragrance, especially I think for spring. Does have this sort of fresh, bubbly vibe with a little bit of sweetness, a little bit of bubblegum sweetness. But it is overall quite refreshing. So I did really enjoy that fragrance as well, but just an honorable mention because, this was a tough list to make. I almost did a top 20 and split it into two videos, but I decided instead to draw it back just a little bit, I guess. So now we are into the actual list. I did try and order these for the most part, based on my actual preference for the fragrance to some degree, although probably could interchange a few of these for sure. Now, first one, Soleil Matin. This is one from Navitus. This was from Chaos's release. He did do two fragrances, I believe. And this was one of them, and this was decisively the one that I really enjoyed. The other one is, it's a nice fresh fragrance, but this one, it has a really nice uniqueness to it. At least I personally haven't smelled anything like it, so that definitely gave it a lot more points in that regard. It did have an originality factor to it. It opens up fresh. Could almost be a day fragrance on the opening, but pretty quickly you get this creamy, fresh citrusy vibe, but there's like a whipped citrus accord or something to that effect, which you really get that really nice rich creaminess along with the citrus. It did make it feel a little bit like lime, although I'm pretty sure lime is not listed at all, so I'm not sure why I picked up that. But it just smells really good, really different. It has a little bit of that sensual vibe, and it is one of those fragrances that is, I think, designed more for dates and more for evenings, and it certainly does that. Right in the opening, it did have a very fresh, more day feel, but it very quickly transitions into this really nice, creamy, sensual, soft, spicy fragrance that I did enjoy quite a bit. Now, next one on the list, a Mancera, and this one was quite the surprise for me, Oud Vanille. The opening for this one, I do think it's a little bit more, it's quite different from the dry down. The dry down I absolutely love. The opening is nice, but it just doesn't compare to the dry down, which is amazing. So it does open up a little bit spicy, woody. And it does have some kind of oud note, probably not natural, but it does have a little bit of a pungent vibe there with that spiciness. So you do get this very nice sort of masculine spicy woodiness. Now, where I really, really love this fragrance is in the dry down. It gets this beautiful, creamy, toasted vanilla vibe. And this is supposedly, or it does have Madagascar vanilla in it. And it does smell very, very similar to the dry down of Wicked Good by Gallagher Fragrances, which also has Madagascar vanilla in it. And I do trust that, you know, when they say at Gallagher that it's vanilla from Madagascar, that it probably is. And given the similarities with Mancera, I think Mancera is probably also using it. And the reason I'm sort of speculating is this is by far the most expensive kind of vanilla. Very, very expensive there. And it's just so beautiful. Like, it just has very warm, cozy, you know, perfect for a cool day, perfect for like cuddling or, you know, just curling up on the couch by the fireplace. That kind of a vibe. Just so cozy and sensual and just really relaxing, actually. Very much like that one. Love that kind of toasted vanilla feel that one and also Wicked Good have. So really, really enjoy that one quite a bit as well. And, you know, I think Mancera does really have quite a few gems if you're, you know, able to find them. And for me, this is absolutely one of the best from the house. Next one, Allure Homme Sport Cologne. So people talk all the time about Allure Homme Sport or Allure Homme Sport Eau Extreme. And my favorite from mine is actually the Cologne. I like Allure Homme Sport second best. I'm not a huge fan of the Eau Extreme. This one is the one for me. So it's very simple. So there's nothing really complicated. This is not a complex fragrance, but the quality is there, and it's a very, very refreshing, uplifting fragrance. For me, it has that orange and lemon note with a hint of that sort of prickly vibe you get with neroli. It does have a very fresh, clean, somewhat watery feel to it, but I often find that comes from a lot of heavy citruses. For me, it does feel oftentimes a little bit watery. This is one you can wear like virtually any time. The performance is not that bad. For a fresh fragrance, it does hit that 6-hour mark for me, which that's fantastic. That's all I really ask for or expect from a freshie. But you know, it's just so well done. It has the quality and it has that uplifting feel. You know, I bought this somewhere around last summer, and you know, I've put a pretty good dent in it, especially considering you know, there wasn't tons of going out because of the lockdowns and stuff. So still wore this one a lot. I still throw this one on sometimes if I'm going into the office or sometimes for the gym or what have you. You know, it is getting colder out here, so if I know I'm going to be outside, don't usually reach for this one. But love this one. Just beautiful, simple, well crafted, and it's one of those things where it's just crafted so well, even though it's simple, that it works really, really well, in my opinion. But you know, if you go into this one expecting a really complex fragrance, you will be let down. But I do recommend that if you go to a store, I mean, you should be able to sample this one for free. Give it a shot. It's one that I think is being slept on from the line, and it is, as I said, my favorite from the line. Now, next one, Vanille Homme. A lot of people were talking about this one. A lot of people making waves about this one. A lot of people love this one. And, you know, I do understand why. It's one of those fragrances that has a lot of the notes that I personally love. You know, it's got cocoa, rum, and tobacco notes in it. And it just has this really nice, dark, sort of boozy, cocoa-y vibe that transitions into a really nice tobacco. And, you know, despite the fact that it is, you know, it is somewhat similar in note breakdowns to other fragrances, it does manage to distinguish itself. Of course, it has a similar feel as, you know, a lot of these other darker sweet fragrances or these darker boozy fragrances. But nonetheless, it is one that is absolutely amazing. I think it's one, if you can find it on discount, it's really, really nice. But I think that's probably always true. In either case, it's a great one to check out if you have not. Next one, Pink Marque du Champagne Truffles. Hopefully I got that whole thing correct. Really like this one. It's a really good gourmand fragrance that does have a premium truffle note. So Pink Marque du Champagne is it's a type of brandy, I believe. So this is a bit of a boozy fragrance with chocolate. And it doesn't open up especially boozy. It smells very chocolatey, like a nice, sweet, dark truffle. And if you've ever smelled Dolce Passione by... totally forgot the name of the brand. But it has this really gorgeous, dark truffle note. This one opens up in a similar fashion. Very high quality, very beautiful truffle note. That does start to give way to a nice boozy feel. So it's a little bit, I mean, oftentimes I find boozy fragrances, it's very boozy in the opening. This one, to me, the booziness came out a little bit more towards the mid. You know, it does dry down to this really enjoyable, sweeter fragrance. But, you know, despite starting a little bit like Dolce Passione, you know, it does definitely transition and grow into its own fragrance, which I really like about it. So it does have that unique factor, despite, you know, the similar opening. Now, next one is Rock Rose, or the Cologne Heirloom by Genre Parfums. So, you know, I'm not a big Clive Christian fan, you know, especially with the price point. I find a lot of their fragrances to be quite a letdown, actually. You know, they just are either not good or not spectacular. Now, Rock Rose is definitely their most popular fragrance that I've heard about. They probably have, or potentially have, other sellers that sell better. But I'm sure Rock Rose is certainly up there. It's the one that I think gets talked about among the most. And it's definitely the one I like the most. It is such an easy to wear fragrance. And it does have that designer-esque mass appeal. So a lot of times, you know, if you want something that's mass appealing, usually a designer is a much safer route. There are many mass appealing niche fragrances, but a lot of niche fragrances are, you know, a little bit more personal taste. You know, and most people who just casually enjoy fragrances don't really go for these really complex scents. And this one definitely has this really nice, I mean, it almost reminds me a bit of like Invictus or something, because it has a little bit of this bubblegum sweetness. It has this really nice breezy freshness, which I do believe is violet. I think there's violet in that one, but it has this very nice breezy freshness. It's very light, playful, easy to wear fragrance, casual, anytime kind of fragrance. That mixes, you know, this breezy freshness with that bubblegum sweetness that does seem to be very, very popular. Hint of the labdanum, only a hint of it. I believe the alternate name for that is actually Rock Rose, and that's where the name comes from in this fragrance. But ultimately, it is a nice one, and if you want to try Clive Christian, that's personally my recommendation. You know, obviously I have not tried every fragrance of theirs, but I have tried several, and like I said, I'm not really a big fan of the house, but Rock Rose, beautiful fragrance, well crafted, easy to wear, mass appealing fragrance. Now, the next one is none other than Allure Vert by Kilian. Now, I was thinking about it as I was making this list. I don't remember when Angel's Share came out. If it was this year, I think it was. In which case, I could have put that one on this list. I bought this one more recently, so I'm going to keep it. But Angel's Share is also a really great fragrance. I also didn't want to have two Kilians. That's the other thing. I can always populate these lists with tons of Kilians because I am a bit of a Kilian fanboy. But, as I said, went with Allure Vert. This one is definitely more unique than Angel's Share. Angel's Share is very, like, it does have a very sexy opening, in my opinion. Boozy, cinnamon, sweet, apple pie kind of feel. Really, really nice for a cold day especially. This one is definitely more unique, more of a niche feel. And it is something that if you like those boozy fragrances, you will like this one. Although you really have to like that kind of black licorice, anise kind of vibe that this one has. So in the opening, this one smells a lot like ouzo, if you've smelled that. It is a Greek alcoholic beverage that is that's made with anise, I believe. And, you know, pretty quickly, this one gets enveloped by a nice, and it does feel like a granulated sugar, which is actually very, very interesting because the idea here is that Allure Vert, it's supposed to represent, you know, the green hour when artists would drink absinthe and stuff like that. And absinthe does also have, it's either anise or it does have a little bit of a black licorice smell to it. But they would often, or they would pour, I believe, water into a sugar cube that would go into the glass, turn it a sort of milky white. And the granulated sugar feel is supposed to give you that impression, which it does really give more of a sugar cube kind of feel. Does become actually fairly thickly sweet, but not overly so. But I was surprised at how sweet this one can get. But like I said, right on the opening, very boozy, very licorice anise vibe. So you do have to like that. And that's why I say it reminds me more of Ouzo than anything else. Now, the only thing is, performance not that great. I do find, at least, especially in comparison with something like Angel Share, which is pretty beast mode. This one, it's performing a little bit better as it's sitting, but I still don't really want to personally give it that 8-hour mark, which I would really like with this one, and maybe slightly more projection is really my only complaint. But I guess I could always spray a little bit more. I can probably do that. But to me, it was not a beast mode fragrance. But it's definitely one that's a little bit more unique, and I appreciated that about it. And it does have that nice boozy quality. Now, top 3. Already in the top 3. Now, this one was a surprise. A lot of people were talking about this fragrance, and I thought it was just going to be hype, or I wasn't expecting much because designer fragrances have been a little bit more of a letdown recently. Not just because they're not good. There are plenty of good ones. It's mostly just, I find that a lot of them are very much similar. Very, very much the same. It's like when A Million Houses clone Aventus. Like at some point it's just like, it's another Aventus clone fragrance or Aventus-like fragrance. And for me, I just really lose interest, at this point. Now this one, I was thinking this could be similar to Pure Havana or something like that. But it does definitely set itself apart, and that is Allure, or what I have, the clone or inspiration from Dappers, which I think is quite spot on, by the way. This is a really beautiful, sweet tobacco fragrance. It has a little bit of smokiness, so there is a little bit of, I believe, incense in this one. It gives it a slight smokiness with the tobacco. Tobacco is not super, super strong. It is definitely present, but it's a little bit more a backseat to the very sweet, fruity kind of a vibe. It does still come off slightly honey-like. I don't remember if honey is in this fragrance, but there is a similar syrupy kind of sweetness there that, it doesn't really have the same kind of vibe as, say, Pure Havana or Naxos, but there is something with that sweetness that is similar. But like I said, nice fruity sweetness, which makes it very appealing. Performance on point, very, very good performer, 8+ hours, and it is quite strong on the opening. So I do really, really like this one, and I definitely recommend checking out Allure, or if you've liked it, you want to get the Dappers clone, it's also a very, very good replica. Now, into the very top, 2 more fragrances. This one was a little bit of a surprise. This one was definitely a little bit of a surprise for me. Kind of wasn't, I love Xerjoff, but I really wasn't expecting this. And the fragrance is Decas, and I guess I just felt like it was going to be too similar to Naxos or something, just by looking at it and what it was supposed to be. But it's quite different. It is quite different. In some sense, I can see why some people call it a fresher or a lighter Naxos, although it smells quite different. I think for me, the biggest thing I find Naxos is honey, sort of spiced sweetness with tobacco in the background. This one, tobacco and Decas, the tobacco is far more foregrounded. It's definitely far more in the front. And it manages to do so in a light, airy kind of a way, which really makes it something you can definitely wear in the spring or the fall. I think is actually a pretty good time for it as well. But it does have, again, a little bit of those sweet kind of nuances, but they're definitely more in the background. And this one has a much more lighter, airy, very present, very easy to discern tobacco. Whereas I find, I love Naxos. It really is a beautiful fragrance. But the tobacco oftentimes I find does get lost in the mix. Whereas this one, it's forefront. It's very clearly there. So Really liked that one quite a bit. Now the next one is none other than Awake by Acro. Now, I think I picked this one as top because I love Follow by Kerosene. I didn't really think anything could challenge it as the best coffee fragrance. And I actually am very tempted to say that Awake is better than Follow by Kerosene. Like, at the end of the day, it's definitely, for me, it's definitely a close match. They're both very good, but Awake is really beautiful in the opening. It does give me this Colombian coffee kind of vibe, very fresh, not in the sense of like a fresh fragrance, but the coffee is like a very freshly brewed coffee, and it does definitely take a different direction. It still has a lot more of the sweet components in the dry down, but it does take a different direction than Follow, so it does manage to also be a very coffee forward fragrance while still being different. Now, I was tempted to put Malt on this list, also by Acro. Love that one. Beautiful. Smells a lot like a Scotch whiskey. Very quality, boozy fragrance. Fortunately for me, there's a seaweed note that I did not pick up a lot of on my skin. Very beautiful, boozy, slightly woody fragrance that I also enjoyed. But Acro Awake, I think it is tough to say which one I buy, but like I said, because Awake potentially dethrones Follow by Kerosene, I had to put it at the top of the list. So, guys, leave a comment down below. What fragrances did you try out this year? Which fragrances did you absolutely love? Leave a few down below. Always nice to have some ideas for fragrances to check out. And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe. And I'll see you guys in the next video.